like to take a moment to discuss a topic that has been of some concern recently. The choice of the topic was actually the subject of a poll I conducted on my Facebook page. I suggested a few topics, I tend to cover all of them, but this is the one that won out, and I think it's incredibly important, so I'm going to get right into it. The subject of Islam. Yeah, this could go a lot of different ways, but this is the way it's going to go. I'm going to start at the beginning. About 900 years ago, there was a man named Muhammad, a merchant. He claimed to have received a vision from the Archangel Gabriel, and he had this recorded down, recited according to him verbatim. That became the Quran, and that started the tradition of Islam, which was heavily informed and inspired by Christianity and Judaism, and in fact it claims to be the final revelation of the God of the Old Testament, the God that's worshipped by Jews and Christians. Now, this should be uncontroversial. This is just a fact. That's what happened. Okay. A lot of Christians seem to think that Islam is an incredibly violent and evil religion that motivates people to cut people's heads off and rape women and sell women into slavery and blow up buildings, and they're not wrong in the sense that that does actually motivate some people to do that, but only because it's inspired by Judaism and Christianity. That is to say, the lines, not in the Quran, but in the Hadiths, sayings of the prophets, and various examples by the caliphs of the Rashidun Caliphate, and the Abbasid Caliphate, and the Umayyad Caliphate, the Ottomans, and the Persian empires, all of that. There's a lot of butchery and barbarism, and there's certainly a fair deal of slaughter, and it wasn't a good thing to be a woman. It was really bad to be a pagan or a Hindu, but it wasn't terribly bad to be a Christian. And compared to what it was like in Europe, it was very good to be a Jew, because they weren't blamed for causing plagues. And so again, all of this is well established, I hope. But I'll just come out and say it. I'm an atheist. I'm an anti-theist. I consider Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, all the rest to be, if not perfect human beings, very, very good examples of human beings, and I have been influenced by what they've had to say. Now, not all atheists have the same appreciation for history I do, and quite a few of them have said things that I would consider flagrant examples of xenophobia. And I'm using the word xenophobia here to describe bigotry, directed towards other cultures and civilizations, unlike that which we experience in commonplace interaction. Why am I not using the word Islamophobia? Because, like a lot of atheists, I think it's a bad word to use. One, it's not necessary. Xenophobia describes what we're talking about perfectly. Two, it assumes that the consequence of hostility and ignorance toward people from a Middle Eastern background is only a function of them being Muslims. And that ignores all the Sikhs and Hindus that have been beaten up, harassed, or killed since 9/11. They were thought to be Muslims, obviously, by the people who attacked them, and the bigoted responses from the people who did those attacks bared that out. We know this, it's happened. I'm going to post links in the description of this video to articles that go into greater detail about that, but what I'm going to say is, you can't really be Islamophobic against people that aren't Muslims, even if your point is that you hate Muslims, because it just doesn't describe it. And this same hostility is directed towards people who aren't even from the Middle East. It's a very common thing for Republicans and conservatives, and basically just bigots who hate immigrants, to claim that ISIS is going to invade from the south, as if Iraq and Syria are in South America, rather than on a different continent separated by the ocean. I know they don't think that the Middle East is south of the border, but they're using this as an excuse to continue their xenophobia and hatred towards people from Latin America. And so, again, xenophobia is a better way to describe this. Now, criticizing religion is not bigoted. You're not born religious. You choose to be religious. And therefore you should be held responsible for your beliefs. especially if you go and do something really horrible. Like, for example, I don't know, pass a law in Uganda that says all homosexuals should be killed. Christians did that. Christian churches in the United States helped organize and pay for that. And good-meaning Christians who believed their religion preaches tolerance donated money to their churches, and their churches used it to fund that bill. I understand that there's a lot of backlash against it, which is good, but really, this shouldn't even be something we're talking about in the 21st century. And so, let me be absolutely clear. I am sure that I'm going to be called a bigot and a hater of brown people for saying all of this. And I'm just as sure that I'm going to be called a religious apologist and a useful idiot for saying this. I know I'm going to be called both things because I have been called both things. And so I really don't care. I'm just telling the truth as best as I can. I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I just read. And I encourage all of you to read, check the things that I've said, and weigh it against your own experience. Let's be very clear about what we're against, those of us who are against organized religion. I'm against Islam as an organized religion, just as I am against Christianity as an organized religion, and Judaism, and Hinduism, and Buddhism, and every other religion on the face of the earth. I think, on the whole, religion is a bad thing. And I know that there are differences between religions. I mean, if you want a religion of peace, talk to a Jainist. They wear cheesecloth in front of their heads while they're asleep so they don't eat flies because they're that nonviolent. Yeah, that's a religion of peace. Christianity? Tell the Abigensians in the 12th, or was it the 13th century? Tell them that Christianity was a religion of peace when the papal legate, Almaric, was quoted as saying the following: "Kill them all, God knows them that are his." He was asked how to distinguish the heretics from the good Christians. Doesn't matter, I don't have to distinguish. Kill them all, God will sort them out. That's where that phrase comes from. It was a Catholic talking about Christians, okay? So, Christianity is not a religion of peace. Judaism, read the Old Testament, not a religion of peace. I don't even have to get into detail, just read it, it's in there. Islam, come on, no one believes it's a religion of peace unless they're apologists of the sort that I just don't like talking to, because they immediately start screaming bigotry whenever I even mention the subject of religion, or if I even dare mention the fact that I'm an atheist. No, sorry, it's not a religion of peace. Just as Christianity isn't, just as Judaism isn't, just as Hinduism isn't, just as Buddhism isn't. Yeah, Buddhism is a religion, and it's not a religion of peace. For details, go check out Burma. Okay, I'm not getting into that. That'll be a subject for a different video. Jainism, yeah, religion of peace, but they're also crazy. Yeah, so religion of peace is a ridiculous thing to say. Don't use that phrase, obviously. Say about Islam, if you're defending it against bigots, that it's no different than Christianity. That should be enough, because most of the bigots are Christians. If you're talking to an atheist, just challenge them on the facts of what they're saying. That should be sufficient. I mean, most of these people don't care about facts. They're ideological atheists who really just give the whole title a bad name. I mean, it really doesn't mean anything. If you're an atheist, it just means you disbelieve in God. It doesn't mean anything positive about your whole situation. There's Atheism Plus, there's Secular Humanism. There are all these different organizations that seek to add something to the title. But really, they're just advocating different philosophies, many of which I agree with. And I'll discuss those at length later on. But as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason to persecute people who happen to be Muslims in any way that's different than how you would treat Christians. Let's not be bigoted toward religious people. Let's criticize their religion and challenge them when they try to impose their views on us, but let's not be assholes toward them, okay? And for the love of Cthulhu, don't burn down their religious buildings, or kill them, or shoot them, or send them copies of the Quran with bullets in them, or any of this bullshit. The people doing that are fascists, okay? Yes, you can be a fascist and also be an atheist. Generally speaking, that doesn't happen. It's not unheard of, it's happened, but most fascists are Catholics. And if you need details on that, I'll get into it, okay? I think that more or less covers the breadth of what I wanted to get into this issue. If you want me to speak about it more, say so in the comments. I'm going to post polls for what I'm going to be discussing next. I already have the next 2 talks lined up, and I'm going to get to those as soon as possible. I don't know how frequently I'm going to be able to make these videos, but I intend to make them on a regular basis, hopefully at least once a month. I hope that this was informative. Please comment, please like it, subscribe if you want to hear more of what I have to say, and I'll see you around. Thanks. Goodbye.